Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Powerful Woman Rising podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Snow, and I'm excited to be here with you today. If this is your first time tuning into the podcast, welcome. You picked a good one to jump in at. And if you have been listening for a while, welcome back. I am happy to have returned to consistent podcasting after my brief hiatus, and am super excited for a lot of things that we have got coming up this month. If you've not already registered for our next virtual speed networking event, that is coming up on August 8th. Make sure that you click the link in the show notes, go to the events section of my website and grab your ticket. If you've never attended before, you can use the promo code FIRSTTIME and attend at no cost. But if you have been before, you know the tickets are only $5 and it's totally worth it. We always sell out of our 100 tickets and we have the most amazing, fun time with some of the best female entrepreneurs in the whole world. So please join us for that. And without further ado, let's talk about today's guest. Civil engineer, serial entrepreneur, and TV star Amber Renae inspires women to discover their wow factor through building their dream digital business, personal branding, and self-love. Australia's leading voice in online business, Amber Renae educates thousands of students in all corners of the globe on a range of topics from entrepreneurship, digital marketing, influencer marketing, and the power of personal branding. She's the star of the U.S. reality show Dream Life, which documents the creation of her latest e-learning project, and is the author of Dream Life, the book. I am super excited to share this episode with you today. We dive into Amber's story of entrepreneurship and all of the ups and downs. Her story is incredible. And I think her authenticity and her transparency is going to be yet another example for you of how not everything is as perfect as it looks. And if you are a hot mess and you are still pushing forward as an entrepreneur, you are not alone. Keep going. You got this. Amber is here to inspire you to build your dream life, and it starts with this episode. Hello, Amber. Welcome to the podcast.
So excited to be here, Melissa. Excited to connect with you and your beautiful audience.
Yes, great to have you here. I'm excited to hear more about your entrepreneurial journey. I did stalk you a little bit online last night in the middle of the night because I don't sleep. So I just stalk my podcast guests in the middle of the night. It's not creepy at all, I promise. I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about your story and your journey and what you do now and how you kind of got to this point.
My entrepreneurial journey is a little bit different from what we're seeing these days on Instagram, the hashtag entrepreneur life. I used to be a construction engineer working, building roads and bridges, and knew that that was not my passion. I looked at the men ahead of me and realized that I did not want to end up like them. So I started my first business about 20 years ago. It was a fashion design label. It started with me on a sewing machine. We sewed 4 shirts and sold 4 shirts that week. The next week we sold 8 shirts. And then 5 years later, we had 120 accounts around the world, exported to Paris, Tokyo, LA, and South Africa, and dressed some of the biggest celebrities of the day, which back in the day was Paris Hilton. And this was kind of before social media. So we were doing influencer marketing before influencer marketing was even a thing. And I thought I was going to have that business for the rest of my life. It's all that I ever wanted to do since I was a little child. But I say the universe had bigger plans for me. My manufacturer went out of business, which caused me to go out of business. And we had prepaid an enormous amount of stock and bought fabrics and patterns and everything. And at the back end of that, I realized that there was no business left for me. I had to declare bankruptcy. And as a result of all the stress and what I had been through over the last 5 or 6 years of running this business, I had essentially worked myself to death. So I was hospitalized with a nervous breakdown. And upon that hospitalization, realized that I had cancer, stomach ulcers, and I had to go on anti-anxiety and antidepressant tablets. So that was my first entrepreneur life business. I swore I would
never.
You're like,
that was so fun. Let's do it again.
I swore, Melissa, I promise you for a year, I was like, I am never doing that ever again. I'm going to get a cushy day job where I show up and someone pays me whether I'm doing a good job or not. And that lasted about a year. And then I decided I'm the world's worst employee. I had to go and start my second business, which was a consulting business. So I'm sure a lot of your audience are in this kind of business at the moment, trading time for hours. So I was a fashion stylist, celebrity stylist, but every week I had to try and hustle for new clients. At the end of the week, if I hadn't done my marketing that week, I didn't have any clients for the next week. So I was on this roller coaster of either not enough hours or not enough clients and this constant cycle. But again, I loved it. I was having the best fun. I landed some really great contracts. So I was the fashion editor for a glossy publication here in Australia, the resident stylist at our biggest radio and TV network, and the fashion TV presenter for Australia. So my job was to interview everyone all the celebrities, all the designers in fashion. I was dressing them for red carpet events. And I honestly, again, thought I was going to do this for the rest of my life because as a little fashionista, what else is there except for, being a celebrity stylist and interviewing all your favorite designers? So again, when the universe had bigger plans for me, it was really quite a shock to find that I lost all of my contracts in 1 month in December of one year due to the effects of the GFC. And I found myself unemployed and unemployable. So I could not get a bar job. I couldn't get a waitressing job. I tried to go back to the construction site. They wouldn't even take me. And I had absolutely nothing left. I was in quite a bad depressive state for a very long period of time, maybe about 6 months, just going, what am I going to do with my life? I cannot get work. And my brother thankfully said, you need to create an online course. And this was back in 2015. So back then, we didn't know what online courses were. I used to have to explain to people, you're going to log in on your phone and then you'll watch the recordings on your laptop. I had to explain what it was. But that very first course was helping people to become a celebrity stylist. I was very good at doing that. I'd done it very well. So I taught that in an online course. And that first course did 6 figures in the first year and still does 6 figures every year since then. And that's when I realized this was actually the perfect business model for me. This was the first time that I had complete freedom. I had complete autonomy. I worked when I wanted to work, wherever I wanted to work. And that was really when I first started realizing the power of having an online business and of teaching your knowledge online. So being a multi-passionate entrepreneur, I then went on and taught all of my other passions. So if you're listening to this and you have so many skills and passions, which I'm guessing you are because you're listening to Melissa, I went on and taught my second passion, which was personal branding and publicity. So I taught that in an online course. And then my third passion was mindset. Obviously, I've been through a few things. So I taught a mindset course for entrepreneurs. And then I realized I was really good at teaching courses. So then I taught a course about courses, which is very meta. And I've since gone on to write the book about online business. And we now have a done for you course creation agency. And so if you're listening to this, I hope you're taking away the fact that the entrepreneurial journey doesn't always look like what we're seeing on Instagram these days, and that there's often a lot of hardship that goes along with the highs of running a business, any kind of business, and really just figuring out which business model is right for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for saying all of that because sometimes it makes me crazy looking at the things on Instagram or, wherever you're looking, especially in the coaching and consulting world of like, I just decided to do this yesterday and now I'm making 7 figures and I can show you how to do that too. But I love your story because there were so many parts in that story where it could have been like, okay, clearly this is not for me. Clearly I'm not cut out for entrepreneurship. Obviously, like what I thought was a good idea was not actually a good idea. And I don't know any entrepreneurs who started out saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is who I'm going to serve. This is what my business is going to be. Were totally successful doing all the things that they planned and never changed it.
I think most people who are successful, like I think there's a statistic that says the average millionaire has failed 3 businesses before they've become a millionaire. So keeping that in mind, if you're going, oh, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. And that's the other thing with finding your niche. I mean, the only reason I was successful in that first iteration of online courses was that I was that person. I lived and breathed that person. I knew exactly what their struggles were. So it was somewhat easier for me to communicate with them. But even just the mindset that you have to go through to be able to start becoming a coach, becoming a consultant, or being paid for your knowledge is such a huge mindset leap because now we're valuing our knowledge rather than our time, which is such a different way of how we've all been raised. So for anyone who's just getting started and they're like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, I always think you figure this thing out as you go and you become better at it the more that you practice it. So a lot of people are going, I don't know what my message is. One day I'm going to wake up and know what my message is. Well, actually, no, you develop your message through sharing it often. So showing up every day or however often you can on your social media, communicating your message, seeing what part resonates with your audience, and then iterating that and growing from there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about networking and these virtual speed networking events that I put on every month, because it's a great place for people, especially if they're newer in business or if they're changing directions or something like that, to come and practice. Like, this is what I do. This is who I help. And nobody knows. Nobody's like, hey, last week you said something else, right? And so you can practice saying it and like, how did that feel? And I don't know if that's really what I want it to be. And I was really excited about that. And now all of a sudden I'm not. So there's no shame in any of that. That's what I love about your story too, is it's like, I think it's so easy to get in this place where it's like, man, it's easy for everybody else. Why is it so hard for me? And it's actually really not easy for anyone else.
No, and I think that the Instagram entrepreneur life has really tainted that for especially the newcomers that are going, hang on, I've been in this, I saw a post the other day, someone said, I've been doing this for 3 months and I still haven't made any money. And I'm like, well, yeah, I did it for years before I made any money. So I think having realistic expectations around what is actually involved in setting up a business. And I always think that if you're starting one of these businesses, whether it's a side hustle or whether it's something that you're hoping to become your main thing, I recommend not expecting it to pay your bills or putting the pressure on it to pay your bills in the first 6 to 12 to 18 months. So if that means that you have to get a shitty day job or a shitty night job where you're waiting tables or just getting paid to show up, then go and do that so that you have safety over your bills. You know that your rent or your mortgage is going to get paid, and you don't have to put the energy of this on this side hustle to try and make money, because that energy ends up leaking into desperation. And if you're trying to sell people on your coaching or consulting in particular, people can really feel that like, oh my God, she's desperate to make this sale. And really no one wants to be in that vibration. So we're not going to exchange money with someone who's desperate for money. But really, if you're wanting to grow your business, think about other ways to support yourself whilst you're letting this beautiful business grow without putting the pressure on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. So it sounds like in your journey, one of the things that was big for you and one of the things that led to your success was you being able to recognize this is the expertise that I already have, whether it is from experience or just because this is my personality, this is who I am, this is who I've always been. I am naturally a teacher, or I have this experience doing these things. And we hear this phrase zone of genius a lot. It's like one of the big buzzwords in the last couple of years. But it sounds to me like part of the reason you were able to be successful in each of these businesses is because you were able to really tap into your zone of genius. So can you talk a little bit about what that means to you for people who maybe aren't familiar with that phrase?
So a zone of genius is the skills, the life experiences, whether that is through a qualification, a degree, a accreditation, or just through the things that you've experienced. So you would have heard in my story that I taught a personal development mindset program. I have no qualifications in mindset. I've never studied a mindset course. I have no mindfulness training, but I've just been through a lot, and I developed a lot of practices that really helped me in my own life. And when I was speaking with my audience, I realized that they could really help them. So I never, in particular with this, with the mindset course, I never claimed that I was Deepak Chopra or Louise Hay. I never said I was going to give you this huge transformation. I just said, I've learned some little rituals that I do every single day to help me be more grateful, more satisfied, more happy, more abundant within my own small entrepreneurial life. And so that was why I ended up teaching that course. And this is where I always think, for people that are going, well, I don't really have anything that I can share with other people. Well, that's where I truly believe you're wrong. I honestly think that everyone has some sort of skill or experience that they can turn around and help the person that's one or two steps behind them. So that's the other thing that we all get in our heads is like, oh, I'm not an expert in this thing. I haven't reached the top level of this thing, so I can't teach at that level. But not everyone is looking to hire the person who's at the top level. So if we think about surfing as an analogy, if you're just learning to surf, you're going to go to the beach and hire whoever is standing on the beach who calls himself a surf coach. They're going to take you out into the shallow water and push you out onto a really big board, and hopefully you're going to stand up that day. That's one particular surf coach and one particular person who's learning that particular skill. If you've been surfing for a little bit longer, you're going to hire someone who's going to take you out the back, put you onto a shortboard, and teach you how to ride the big waves. So again, it's a different level of learner and a different level of teacher. And if you're ready to go pro as a surfer, you're going to hire a expert performance coach who's going to work on your technique. So as you can see there are three very different levels of surfers and three very different levels of teachers. And whatever it is that you're teaching, there are people at that level that are wanting that support. So even if you have just learned one thing that you do around your house to support your family, to help your children with your own self, in your own self-care, in your own self-life, there is going to be someone who's one to two steps behind you who is looking for that level of care and support and knowledge that you have iterated in your own existence.
Yeah, I can tell that you're not from Colorado because we would never use an analogy about surfing. All my Colorado girls are like, what? What's she
What's the
talking
surfing? Yeah.
about? I
I'm from
love it.
Queensland. We go surfing here in Queensland.
That's a great analogy though, because it's true. I mean, we do get very much in our heads like I can't put myself out there and make this offer or say that I am an expert in this thing unless I know everything there is to know about it. But like in your analogy, if I've never surfed before, I don't need to go find the like gold medal surfer to teach me, right? I just need somebody who knows a little bit more about surfing than I do.
Mhm.
That's awesome. So if somebody is listening to this and they don't feel like they know what their zone of genius is the best way for them to figure that out to think about like what you were saying? What are some of the things that I have learned in my journey? What are some of the things that are really helpful to me that maybe we take for granted that is just natural and everybody knows it? Is that kind of the best place to start figuring that out?
That's a great definition of a genius zone. The thing with the genius zone is for everyone else, it's genius. For us, it's just the thing that we know. So I love that you brought that up. So if you're unaware of your genius zone, and usually most people kind of go, oh, I'm kind of good at, two or three things, but they're not really sure which is the one thing. A really easy thing that you can do is go and speak to the people who love you and ask them what they would consider your genius zone to be. And you don't have to use that terminology, but just go and ask them, what would you come to me for advice, or even seed your ideas and be like, I'm thinking of helping people with idea one, idea two, and idea three. Which one of them do you really see me succeeding at being able to offer great experience, great knowledge, great insight into? And often with women in particular, we have a little bit of a blinder around our genius zone. But if you go and ask the people who love you, they will be able to tell you, this is your genius zone. And one of my best examples of this is if you can combine a couple of areas that you're really passionate about. And when we're saying the word genius, you don't have to be a genius at these things. You just have to be really passionate about them and have some knowledge and skill that you can pass on. So I love giving the example of my student Malay. Malay was really passionate about hair and makeup and beauty and styling, fashion and makeup styling. She'd done courses in that. So that was what her job was. But on the weekends, she went to the rodeo. So she went and watched rodeo riders and was very passionate about that as a hobby. So, rodeos on the horses and everything. I
Oh
didn't know
yeah,
what it
we
was.
know those in
Oh,
Colorado.
Colorado knows that. Right. Got it. Okay. So she created a course that helps the competitive rodeo riders match their hair, makeup, and outfit to their horse color. So when they're in their competition, they're looking all beautifully styled and glam and matching, which I just think is the most perfect example of a genius zone combination that I think I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah. The ability to merge those two things. It makes me think of, before I moved into business relationships, I was a dating coach. I was a dating coach for 6 years before that, working mostly with single women. And it's actually like people ask me sometimes, like, how did you go from that to business? I'm like, it's actually not that different. A lot of the things that I taught women about dating are the same things I teach women about business, just in a different way. So being able to merge that knowledge of relationships and interpersonal interactions and how do we attract the right people? How do we repel the right people? And then just applying them in a totally different scenario is exactly what you're talking about.
I love what you've said there too about digging back into your history. So most people would have gone, oh, well, no, that was just my dating experience. So it's got no relevance to what I'm currently doing today. But I've seen in hindsight, when I look at my own personal journey of all my businesses, is that they've all led me to become to become the expert, and I use that word lightly, in this business purely because of the experience that I've had. So my engineering degree, although I used it when I was working on a construction site, I actually use it a lot in this business when I'm looking at my Facebook data and trying to run ads and looking at all the analytics in my business. So that to me has been amazing that I'm using my engineering degree in this business. In my second business, the fashion design label, it was very much a creative outlet, and the styling as well was very creative. And in the styling business, I learned how to speak and how to present as a personal brand. So when I look back in hindsight, all of this experience has led me to be great at this business, but I've wrapped it all up into one. So when there was a great speech by Steve Jobs when he was talking about when he designed the fonts of the Mac. And he said that during his years of study at university, he went and did electives such as calligraphy. So these were not part of his original degree. They weren't part of his, curriculum, but he just went and studied them because he was interested in learning calligraphy. And when the Mac came out, the Mac was the first computer to have beautiful fonts. And that's where the beautiful fonts came from, because Steve Jobs studied calligraphy. So that's a little way to weave in all the parts of your life to eventually find the part that is your genius zone that you can help other people with.
Yes, I love that. That's a great story. I'd never heard that before about him. That's fascinating. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, I know what my genius zone is. I know what I want to do. I know who I want to help. I know how I can help them. This is a very big question. So give us the 100-mile answer. What's the best way for them to start, or what tips do you have for people who want to turn their zone of genius into an online business?
I've actually got a great answer for this. This is what I call the MVP. It's the minimum bankable product. So the minimum bankable product is the thing that you teach first before you create any curriculum, before you shoot any content, before you start learning any new tech, because these are the things that we all get tripped up with, learning big tech platforms or shooting 30, 40 videos. But first, the step before that is actually MVP. So where I see a lot of entrepreneurs going wrong is that they're in idea phase. So they have an idea for their online course and they try to go to signature course phase. So signature course is the platform, the logins, the student workbooks, the downloadables, the videos, 40, 50 lessons. But you can't go from idea phase to signature program phase because you get stuck with all of those questions of I don't know what I'm supposed to be teaching. And are people really going to want this in the course? And all the other things that go with creating an online course. However, if you go from idea phase to MVP phase, this is the simplified version of getting your first iteration out there. So the way that you want to think of an MVP is essentially like a pilot program, a test program, a beta program, but you can map out your MVP in one day. You put an offer out to your existing network. So the people that already know you, that you already have that know, like, and trust factor with. You see if anyone in that audience wants to sign up to your MVP at a discounted price, which they will. I know it sounds amazing, but it always happens. There's always people in your audience. And once you get those people in, then you teach your MVP live. So the beauty of doing it this way is a number of things. One, you get paid for your knowledge. And for a lot of people, this is the first time they're actually getting paid for their knowledge. So already you're breaking down huge mindset shifts around, can I do this? Is someone going to pay me for my knowledge? And, you're rewiring your brain a lot that way. Taking money for something that's coming out of your brain is, a huge step for a lot of people. Secondly, when you're teaching your MVP live, you're getting feedback directly from your students. So where I see a lot of course creators get tripped up is because it's your genius zone, you assume that everyone knows all the things that you know. So when you go to teach your course, a lot of people start teaching their course at point C, and then they teach C, D, and E. And they don't realize that we actually need a point A and B before we can get to point C. And you don't know this until you actually teach it live and you get live feedback from an audience, because then your audience goes, hang on, how did you get to point C? I needed point B and A. And then you go, oh, okay, no worries. I can teach this to you now. And then because the MVP is a live environment, it's essentially like live group coaching calls, like what similar to what we're doing here. You don't have to learn any new tech. You can do it with your phone and your Zoom. It's super easy to deliver. And this is how you get the ball rolling. So this is your step number one in creating your online course.
That's awesome. That's so simple. We love to overcomplicate things, don't we?
And I do actually think it's women that overcomplicate things a lot more than men. And even in signature program phase. So I teach, obviously my course teaches this whole process. And I can't tell you the number of women that have got courses out there that are making the money. So they're already having student success stories and getting testimonials. And they'll show up to my group coaching call each week and go, Amber, I'm thinking of reshooting my videos because I think the background's not very nice. And I'm like, what? What are you doing? You are not reshooting your videos. No one cares about your background. People are getting the results. And whenever I take courses from men, and this isn't a dig with the men, but I think it's just an example of how women overthink things and overcomplicate things. A lot of the big men in my industry in particular, their online courses are shot in their like a living room with butcher paper. There's no fancy downloadable. They haven't edited out the ums and ahs. It's just one long stream of consciousness. They go down rabbit holes. They're in a t-shirt with bad lighting. And then here is us women that are like, oh, I said and ah too many times. I should reshoot that video. So something for the women.
And then the guys are like, that was freaking awesome. Everyone's going to pay me for that. And we do.
Yeah, and I'm going to charge 10 times what the women are charging. Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. So do you think that it's possible for everyone to turn their zone of genius into an online business? Not necessarily that everyone should, but if they want to, do you think it's possible for everyone, or are there certain qualities or like parts of the foundation people already need to have in place?
I think it's possible for everyone to have a digital product that they own, that the government can't close down during a crisis, that, can't be switched off, but something that you own, that you have complete autonomy over, whether that's going to make you millions of dollars or whether it's just something that you can rely on, that, every month I'm going to get $1,000 from that product every single month. I do believe everyone has something in them that they can help everyone else. And whether you choose for it to become this huge business or whether you just know, I've just got something that I can rely on if something goes bad, or a couple of extra dollars coming in every single week, I do really think everyone has the capacity to build something that ticks over for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to our earlier point that we were just talking about, I think sometimes we think it's not enough for me to just have the zone of genius because I don't know the tech. I don't know how to market it. I don't know the sales. I don't know how to create a landing page. Like, especially in the beginning of business, would think like, oh, I'm going to do this course or I'm going to do this workshop or whatever. And I can't just say like, hey, here's this workshop, who wants to do it? First, I have to make a landing page, and that landing page has to link to my CRM, and that has to have a tag that goes to an email sequence. And then they have to have like all the things. But people don't necessarily, at least in the very beginning, need to have all of the knowledge of all of the things to just start putting themselves out there.
I think, and I see it more and more these days, I think these days, if you have a social media following, even a couple hundred people that you're actively engaging with, in relationship with, having conversations with, you can tell them to send you a DM for the link. The link can be a PayPal link. So a link just straight to PayPal that pays you. And once you get the PayPal notification, you can manually send them an email on your Gmail account with a link to the private Zoom call. And that's it. It does not have to be any more complicated than that. And I see a lot of really successful women these days doing the whole business that way. I mean, it sounds like you and me, Melissa, were raised in the masculine way of doing business, which is to have all the tech set up and to write the long form sales pages. But I see more and more women coming up that are doing it completely effortlessly. So social media posts, to a DM, having a conversation to the DM, sending a link to a PayPal, getting people onto a private Zoom. And it does not have to be any more complicated than that.
Yeah. And if you want to get fancier later, get fancier later. Get your fancy website and your branding photos and your email automations and all the things. But in the beginning, I think I see so many people doing it backwards. Like we get all of those things, we spend all that money on stuff, and then we're like, okay, here it all is. It's perfect and put together. Who wants to buy it? And then we struggle to make money. So do, like you said, the minimum viable thing to get yourself out there and get your visibility going, to start making money consistently. And then once you're in that place, go back and get all the fancy stuff.
Yeah, one of my girlfriends actually did it the way that you've just described. So she had a new brand, new branding, and new photos every 3 to 6 months, because every 3 to 6 months in the beginning, she was changing her avatar and changing her offer. And so every couple of months, the whole thing changed. The name of the website changed, the URL changed, the branding colors changed, the photos changed, the Facebook group name changed every like 3 to 6 months. And I was like, oh my God, girl, I don't know what you're even doing over there anymore. She didn't sell a single thing. And it was only once she really dialed in her offer, which takes time sometimes, because her offer was in nutrition and sort of wellness. So she wasn't really sure who was the specific avatar. And I just watched her spending all this money and going through all these motions of like doing all the fancy things without ever actually selling anything. But once she really figured out her messaging, then it all clicked, then the website made sense, then the messaging made sense. But use that as a cautionary tale if you're just starting out to, you don't need any of that stuff when you're just starting out. You really just need to find one social media platform that you enjoy being on, learn how to create content on that. And by when I say learn, go and study YouTube videos, go and take courses on how to master that particular platform, and then just create relationships on that particular platform and nurture those relationships and have conversations with real people. In the end, the people who are buying your product or your program are just human beings, and they just want to have a conversation. So you don't even have to worry about selling to people or being an icky salesperson, because you're just having a conversation with typically another woman who's interested in what you're selling. So just speak to her as though she's another woman. You don't need to have anything else in place.
Yeah. Oh, you're speaking my language. So you wrote a book, which I love and I'm super impressed by, because like every other day I'm like, I'm going to write a book, and still no book. Tell us about your book.
So the book is my dream methodology, which follows my mindset, personal brand, online estate, so online courses and programs, automation, and mindset. So I wrote this during the pandemic when I realized that people really needed a handbook for online business, because everyone was sort of diving into it, but they didn't really know where to start. So this sort of encapsulates everything that I've created in all of my online courses, all wrapped up into one fabulous book. It's very actionable, lots of great strategies in there. And the MVP, I'm pretty sure, is in there as well. So if you wanted to learn more about that, you could just check out the book. It's super affordable.
And it's pink, which makes me very happy. It's beautiful. I love it. If people want to check out your book, or if they just want to connect with you further, learn more about what you do, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, come and find me on Instagram and tell me that you saw me on this pod so that we can connect.
Awesome. I will put the link for that in the show notes, and people can connect with you there. And I so appreciate your time. It's lovely talking to you.
Absolute pleasure. I hope that I was able to offer some guidance and support for your beautiful audience.
Yes, so many good tips. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Powerful Women Rising podcast. I hope that you are loving this content as much as I am loving making it. I struggle with podcasts because so often I'm like, I thought you were going to teach me something, and that was actually just a commercial. So I and my guests always aim to bring you actionable content that you can actually use to take your business to the next level. So if you love what you're hearing, please leave a review, follow, like, subscribe, share, do all the things, and then join me over on Instagram to continue the conversation. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next Monday.